Tēnā koe, Ree.
Kia ora.
Thank you so much for having us today. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, kia ora. Ko Ree Munro tōku ingoa. I'm Ree Munro. I use he and they pronouns.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 34 years old.
Yay!
Yeah.
Where are you from?
So I'm from the UK. I was born in a little town at the bottom of the UK called Plymouth.
Okay.
That's where I was raised for the first 11 years of my life before my whānau moved to Aotearoa, and we settled here in West Auckland, and I've been out here ever since.
You know what? From the second I saw your photo, I was like, that's always Steve.
Yeah, got that look about us. Yeah. Totally.
And that's how you view yourself, Westy?
Yeah, definitely. Westy hard, Westy's best, and all of that. So,
okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Sure, yeah.
So let's speak on that when you were a young child. So you have a long history with dance.
I sure do,
And you trained quite seriously as a child. Yeah. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. Like, I had a really, really beautiful childhood. I had a close whānau, spent a lot of time with my parents and my grandparents. Lots of like day trips around the place, you know. I was their first granddaughter, so a really privileged and lucky position to be in the family. I've started dancing when I was about 3 or 4 years old. My mum was a dancer too, so it was sort of in the blood, and kind of I was something that they were going to encourage me to get involved in. I started when I was 4, and I think I danced for sort of 15 years, and we did all sorts of different competitions. We travelled around like the bottom of the UK. I won some positions and some awards, and ended up in London a couple of times dancing on the West End, which was really exciting. And
the West End?
Yeah, I know, it's pretty flash, eh? Like,
okay, I'm a little bit jealous.
To be fair, I don't remember heaps about it. I just remember like there was just so many lights in my face. Like, it was really bright, and I just remember kind of being a bit confused and a bit like, you know, what's going on, you know? But I loved it. It was so much fun, and really awesome experience. So. Yeah.
So I read that dance, you partook in many different styles of dance, but ballet was the one at the forefront. Yep. So with ballet, I suppose the question I want to ask is, with the art form being so, I guess, strict and how binary it is, how does a young person navigate that world when they know they're not particularly, they don't view themselves in that particular way?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, how does that work?
I think like I don't remember feeling when I was young like there was no kind of like moment I realized that I was like trans. Like, I didn't really have like this like internal sense that I was really like a masculine human, you know. Like I was kind of just I've always felt like out of step in a way, you know, like, I guess it's a good pun for a dancer, eh? But like, it felt like everybody else really kind of started to find their identity and lean into it and feel really comfortable in it, where I always was like kind of held back and kind of felt like it wasn't quite me or quite matching in the way that I needed it to. But it's not the way now, but at the time I was quite tall for my age, so I was sort of always put in like the positions of being like the boy in the dance or whatever, which I really quite enjoyed. I was like, oh, that's quite a good payoff, really, isn't it? Like, I get to dress in like these mask outfits and like, you know, really lean into like, you know, that like strong stereotypical like powerful male character. And I think that was my first like kind of experience of like experimenting with my gender in a way, you know, like being like, oh yeah, like, you know, I can be like a chimney sweep, I remember, or like we had like a duet where we were 2 mice and I was like the boy mouse, so I wear like a cute like waistcoat and stuff like that. So there was like little moments like that where I think like it was the first time my gender was kind of like coming up and out and into the world, you know, and I was just kind of enjoying experiencing it.
So it like almost inadvertently served you in a way, didn't it? Just by being tall. Isn't that interesting? So when was there ever a moment then from all of that where you kind of went, this is that you knew you were different? So was it a defining hallelujah moment, or was it more of a just a gradual
I kind of always like describe it as if like like masculinity was like a really hot flame that I couldn't like look away from. It was like something that just kind of drew me towards it, and like it was like enticing, you know, like it was like, and the closer I got, like, you know, if I put on like if I got some hand-me-downs, you know, and I was wearing like some mass clothing, it just felt really good. Or, you know, like if someone used like words or a description of me that was like, you know, traditionally associated with men or masculinity, you know, like a little kind of like, I lit up a little bit inside, and it's like I got like, it was like I couldn't get close enough to this flame, you know, until like I stepped into it and it was part of me, and I was it, and the flame was me, and like, you know, it just kind of felt like so good, and I couldn't look away from it, you know. And so I wouldn't say there's like a defining moment when I was like, this is it, but like I do remember like being in my backyard as a child and thinking to myself, everything just would have been like much easier if I was born a guy, you know, if I was born a boy. And then there was like the little answering voice in my head that was like, well, you weren't, so, and there's nothing you can do about that, so just enjoy this while you can, because it's not gonna get any easier, you know? So yeah, I definitely think it was I was present, but there was no representation of trans people in my life. Like, I didn't know any trans people. They weren't on television or in the books I read, you know? So I just had no idea, you know? And like, all I did was just keep doing what felt good, you know? Until, unfortunately, I hit sort of puberty, and dance was no longer something that felt good, because hormones set in and development set in, you know, and all of a sudden it was just too confronting and too frightening and way too weird for me to keep going. So I stopped and cut it off. Yeah.
Let's speak to that. Something that you're incredibly passionate about. Stopping completely. What does that do to not only somebody who loves the dance so much, but somebody that's gradually going through puberty? Like, what does that... What place does that put you in?
I remember feeling quite lost without it, because it had been quite a formulative part of my identity, and it coincided, me giving it up kind of coincided with me coming to Aotearoa. Like I stopped very soon after I arrived, and I think it was like that time, like, you know, immigration is never an easy journey, you know. We'd left our entire sort of social structure behind, like all of the adults I was really close to, my friends, my routine, and all of that kind of went out the window. And I remember feeling like it was a time of like feeling quite lost and trying to find something to replace it, you know, and trying to find things that would like kind of replace that routine and that joy. And I didn't move for a very long time, you know. Movement kind of went out of my life, because that was the primary way in which I kind of got my movement. And my body started to change. I started to feel quite trapped, and the sort of my teenage years and my early 20s, I wouldn't say were a very happy time, you know. I felt like I wouldn't say that I had like a bad time of it, or like, you know, it was terrible. There was definitely moments of joy and happiness. Like, I had good friends, and in many ways, like, I had an awesome life, you know, like, and can't complain. But I definitely struggled with like poor mental health, and especially in my 20s, it was a pretty dark time, trying to find that identity and trying to figure all of this out, and why I felt so sad and out of step and out of sync all the time, you know. And so
what did you eventually find?
It took a while. I remember when I was at uni, I found theatre, which I really loved. I went onto the stage and had a great group of mates and a class full of other actors, and we did a lot of, and that was a form of movement in a sense, you know, and like a lot of my dance training came into that, because it helped me to be free and feel free on stage and move in a way that felt good, which I really loved, and that was a really important part of my life. I think it just got to a point in my mid-20s when I was so unhappy with myself, and like so unhappy with my life, and I remember I was on quite a lot of medications from doctors to try and keep my mood stable, and I just got to a point where I was like, I don't want to feel like this numb or this unhappy all the time. There has to be a reason that I feel this way, and it took me a while to stop all of that and kind of ease that out of my life. And I decided to make the decision one day that I had a friend that was a PT, and I went to him and I was like, can you kind of help me get in shape and feel more confident? And that was like the journey back to exercise. And I started to lose some weight and I started to feel more confident. And alongside of this was this gender journey that I was going through of like trying a different type of expression and cutting my hair and trying new ways of describing myself and expressing myself to the world. And sooner or later it felt like the roads kind of diverged and I started to get some clarity and was like, hold on a second, like I could remember that little voice in my mind from when I was younger, and like all of these experiences, they started to add up, and gradually over time I started to get that clarity and made the decision that it was time to take the leap and to transition socially and then go from there. So yeah, it was a long time and a big time. There's so much in that, right? Like it's even hard to find the words to express just how much it infiltrates and like weaves throughout your life. Yeah, and on the other side of it now, the other side feeling in a much stronger and better place, I look back on it and realise just how much it took to
because it's not just you that has to make the shift, is it? It's your entire family. It's you're the friendships that you've made. It's the work relationships that you have. It's not. It starts with you, but it just the roots just extend out through to so many people. So when you are in that place of centeredness and happiness, there's nothing greater than that, is there?
Nah. And I think I feel like my relationships and the people around me looked to me for leadership as well, because you know they were really, this was new for them too, and you know, they were really kind of like I guess a bit like shell-shocked and struggling with it, you know, and people look to you for leadership, but I certainly wasn't in the place to provide it at that time, because it was chaos, you know, like everything around me was just, it felt like just a big swirling storm, you know. And so yeah, it was trying to find that place of calm in the middle of it all. And
who are the biggest contenders for you to help you through your journey?
I had so much support. I was so lucky. It took my whānau a little bit of time. We went through some big conversations, and those big conversations happened over a period of months and years. As we started to unpack and unpick it all, you know, like it's layers upon layers, you know, and you peel one layer off and then another layer, and it takes people time to come to that conversation. And I think I appreciate that a lot more now than I did at the time, because I didn't feel like it was moving fast enough, you know. But I can't speak more highly of my mum and dad, who have, you know, have stuck by me and have really supported me through the whole journey. And I've got a great group of friends, and yeah, I think one conversation that was quite like helped me a lot in the beginning was someone said to me, "You might not realize this now, but being trans is a gift, and you'll realize it one day." And I was, at the time, I was like, nah, it's not. Like, you know, like, are you serious? Like, all of this stuff, like, this isn't a gift. Like, you know, like, I wish I didn't have to, but on the other side of it now, I completely and utterly understand why. And completely, and there's not like an ounce of shame in my body that exists for being trans. Like, I'm proud of it, and I'm so thankful that I was born into this life and got to have this experience, because it has changed me inside and out, and has changed my perspective on the world, and I'm so grateful for what it has given me.
I love that. You've opened the hearts of so many just by living authentically and giving people the opportunity to learn and educate themselves about it. That's such a beautiful thing that you carry, so I completely agree with that statement. When did dance come back into your life?
Quite recently.
Yeah?
Yeah, it hasn't been a long time. And I remember making the decision to go for the first time was like quite terrifying. I was like, what if I don't remember what like, you know, like what if people laugh at me? I like had a quite bad experience in the beginning with someone telling me that I kind of dance like a girl, and it hurt me so hard, like, you know.
How offensive!
I know, how offensive. But I was so upset by that statement, because, like, for me, I wasn't dancing like a girl or wasn't dancing like a guy. I was just dancing, you know, like doing my thing, like enjoying it. So that really kind of shook my confidence a little bit. So yeah, all of that baggage was like really. Like, like I was carrying a lot.
Yeah.
But I found this awesome community dance class, which I've been attending since about 3 years now, and it's really awesome space because there's no mirrors, there's no expectation. Everybody there is there because it's something that they enjoy and that they love, and that they are there because they want to stay healthy, stay strong, improve, increase their mobility. You know, like there's no ego in the room, and those are the spaces I enjoy the most, because that's when you feel most free, right?
Yes.
And there's no judgment, there's no nobody watching or critiquing or anything, and that's quite different from what it was like from when I was a child, because it was all about how well you could do something, but now it's just how
freedom.
Yeah, how much fun can you have? You know? And how awesome. Yeah.
Something that I really loved reading about you was how a drive of yours is getting people of our community involved in more fitness.
Yeah, but no. So yeah, I guess movement for me has been such a healing part of this journey, you know, like it's helped me to be more connected with my body, it's helped me to feel confident, it's helped me to grow my self-esteem, all of the like stuff that comes with movement and being fit, like, you know, the strength and the you know, sometimes you look a bit better, like, well, you feel you look a bit better in your clothes, you know, like all of those things are nice to have, but actually what matters the most is that it's healing and it's about health, you know. So I'm passionate about people, particularly trans people, being able to find joy within the movement that they do, whatever that looks like. And I don't feel that our community has access to those spaces at all. In fact, like the conversation that happens above us at that high performance sport like level is all the conversation says you don't belong here, you know. And unfortunately that conversation is really hurtful and damaging for us, because it filters down into us at a community level, and all of a sudden it's too hard for us to go into the gym because we don't know the reception that we're going to receive from that space, or finding a personal trainer who we can be open with about our specific and personal needs and our goals, whatever they look like for us. We're not sure that when we have that interaction that it's going to be kind or generous. So for me it's like, right, so what do we need to do to quieten down all those voices, strip it right back and build it back up from the ground? Like, what is it that our community needs the most? What is the interaction that our community needs? And strengthening the sector so that more rainbow people, more trans people can find careers and expertise in that space that they can enjoy, and that people across Aotearoa are able to access it through them. So that's what really drives me and what I'm passionate about doing, and the work that I'm doing now is all feeding into that goal.
I love that. I really do love that. I love that, because it's just so hard for us to navigate those spaces. Like, before we even leave our house, we have to go, okay, what are we walking into right now? And so with doing that, you're ensuring the safety of so many people who thought they could never be in those spaces. So kudos. Kudos to you. The joyful movement project. Could you please speak to that? Because I think it's beautiful.
I'm really, really fortunate because I've managed to find a role that allows me to bring my lived experience and my experience of being a trans person and live it outwardly and loudly, and work to improve and grow the situation in Aotearoa for other trans people. So Joyful Movement was a project that I led through my mahi that is around exploring the barriers that trans young people experience when it comes to sport and exercise in their personal lives. So we worked with a group of young people, and they, alongside us, went out and spoke to a whole different bunch of trans youth, different experiences, and we managed to collate that into a report that tells us like a lot and gives us a lot of information on what it's like about. We found a whole lot of information out. Like I feel like at its heart, it's like trans people want to move, and movement is important in their life as much as it is anyone else. You know, they want to move in lots of different ways. They want to experience movement.
Yes.
And they have a drive to move too, just like the rest of the population, right? There's no different. But it just comes down to spaces and places in which they can do that are much less. The feelings associated with movement aren't always pleasant when you're exploring who you are and your body, and it can be confronting and it can be scary, and finding a routine that works for you isn't always easy, just like it is for the rest of the population. But with those extra barriers, it really kind of increases that that fear of judgment and fear of exclusion, you know. So we're really stoked with all of these awesome conversations, and I'm just really thankful for all the young people that shared their experiences, and now we can go on and use that information to advocate for change within spaces and facilities, within gyms, within people's personal training, that kaupapa, and also like it's a chance for us as well to really use that voice to keep trans people's voices at the heart of this process and help to influence other people to understand those barriers and make the appropriate change.
I love that it's the youth that golden information. It's the youth who, because the youth know. I always say the youth know a lot more than we will ever know, and they're starting to learn new things, and they're starting to get a lot more acceptance in different places. So who better to hear from than them to understand exactly what is needed and what is necessary. I love that. I love it.
They're such leaders as well, right? The young people, they're just like got so much fire and passion, like
exactly.
And more than ever, they're finding words and ways to express themselves that were definitely not there when I was young, you know, like, and it's just so cool to see this language and this understanding and this awareness develop amongst them. Like, they're so strong and powerful. So
absolutely,
totally.
It just goes to show how we're going to be in good hands. When we move on into the next generations, like the generations coming forward, will always be there to ensure that we can pass it on.
Absolutely.
But that's through having people like you. So we're doing our bit as well.
Absolutely.
So through that research, Ree, what did you find out?
We found out that like young people are astutely attuned to the conversation that's happening at that higher level. Like those newspaper articles, those outdated tropes we see all the time about sport not being a place for trans women or trans men, or non-binary people, you know, basically no trans people, you know. They're like attuned to it, and it affects them. That representation affects them and unsettles them. We found that the older young people get, so particularly the difference between those who have left school and those who are still in school. School is a really important protective factor for young people. It's a space where they've got routine, where they have social friendships, they have adults surrounding them that have got their back and support them in most cases. And so school was a really important motivating factor for them to be active. Even the fact that many of them walk to school, you know, that's still movement in their life that is giving them health benefits. But we found once they left school, that's when the kind of the ground fell out from underneath them. And that was definitely my experience too. Like, school was a really important part of my life, and then as soon as I hit 18, it was like all of that routine and my meaning and my what I would kind of got up for every day kind of disappeared. And I remember feeling really kind of adrift and kind of a bit lost at that time. And so adding those pressures of being rainbow and adding those pressures of being trans, and maybe having to advocate for your own healthcare, or maybe needing to find a new social peer group, or moving to a new city, like all of those things are massive stresses anyway. Trying to build a routine of movement into your life is pretty difficult, and it's expensive, you know. A lot of them talked about the cost. A lot of the whānau we talked to also lived with like neurodivergence or disability, which added an extra layer of pressure to them, being able to find spaces and people who are able to work with them and advocate for them in those ways. Lots of people talked about how when they go into spaces or facilities, not only are they walking in as a trans person, but they are also walking in with our cultural identity too. Whether they are Māori or whether they have Pacifica identity or whether they're from, whether they're migrant or refugee, all of those things need to come with them too. And so it's not just about being rainbow friendly, it's actually about thinking about inclusiveness as a whole and how we do a wraparound approach to making sure that all cultural identities are safe and accepted and lifted up in those spaces.
So with all that in mind, has there been space to come up with solutions for these particular situations?
Yeah, and I feel like one of the main things that I'm going to be focusing on in the coming years is how we help more rainbow people to become part of that industry. We need representation. We need materials and content that shows rainbow people in a positive light, being accepted and loved and brought into those sports teams and those local community classes. I don't just want to create a space where trans people are over here doing their own thing and, because that's not inclusion, that's just more of the same really in a different way. So
it's the conversation that's been had by the opposing people, putting us in our little box, in our little section in the world where, like what you're saying is that, well, what we're all saying is that's not how it is.
No. And it's just recognizing that these systems and these systems we have in place, they aren't fit for purpose anymore. Like we have grown and we understand now that gender diversity is a part of our world and our life. Trans people are everywhere.
Say that again.
We're your doctors, everywhere. We're your nurses, everywhere. We're your teachers, We're your dads and brothers and sisters and whānau, we're not going anywhere. Amen. There's just going to be more of us. So rather than fight against that and say, you guys are the problem, actually, let's think about the way we're doing it and how do we break that down and rebuild something that is for everyone, not just for some, So that's my focus. How do we strengthen the industry with Rainbow Voice? How do we empower more young people and rainbow people to find careers in the exercise and sport industry? How do we open those doors and how do we work within the courses and the content that we're teaching to be able to make it represent our rainbow whānau and build it in so that there's greater acknowledgement and greater representation and people across the industry, cis and trans and everything in between, understand that this is what the rainbow need is and how we can answer it and be there for it. So I'm super passionate about it. I could talk for hours about this.
Continue, please. I love it. I love it all.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about your work with trans youth in relation to alcohol and drug abuse. How does... Because obviously that is a major thing that is happening to our people. How have we made progress in supporting and looking after those people?
I definitely think that we're definitely on the right track in making progress. I think there are some key changes in the legislative and policy space that need to be made. However, where my heart really lies is at that community development level of how we help support young people who are experiencing challenges or addiction in some kind of way and be able to support them to make a change if they wish to, or how to reduce the use that they have around alcohol and drugs. For me, I think a lot of our rainbow spaces are based around partying and clubbing, and like if I think about my own history with socializing as a rainbow person, we all went to K Road, and quite often it was like a night on the town, and coming home at early hours, like quite wasted, and that's just the norm because so many of our spaces are built around alcohol and drugs and nights out, right? Which is fine because there's a place for that, and it's a good time quite often, and we don't want to stop anybody having a good time or engaging in that party scene if they wish to. That's I think it's in many ways for some people it's a really important part of their social calendar. So and I don't see drugs or alcohol as having kind of like any moral weight, that they're just things that people engage in from time to time, and some people enjoy them and some people don't, and it's how we do it safely in a way that makes sure that we're looked after throughout that process is the important thing, is that everybody is safe and comes home at the end of the night.
Yeah.
So I think that we need more funding and more support at a community level to be able to support not only rainbow people but all young people to have access to therapy and counselling and people to talk to and people to reach out to if they need help. We need to strengthen our sector in terms of responding to rainbow people so that people can work with young people in a strengths-based way. I have like a really key moment in my life that I think really articulates some of the change that needs to happen at that level. And it was maybe like, I was quite early on in this whole transition journey, right? I was quite vulnerable. I was still probably a young person at heart, and someone had given me access to some therapy. And so I was like, yeah, great. Like, I've got some stuff going on right now. I need to talk about it, like it's really important. So I was stoked to be able to have like these 3 or 4 counselling sessions. And I went along and built a really good relationship with the person. It was really helpful. We worked through some things, and it was great. I felt like it went really well. And in the last session, like I was literally walking out the door, like just about to leave, and she goes, "Hey, a lot of trans people that end up coming through here that I see, they go on to live really lonely lives, and I hope that doesn't happen to you." And I lost it. Like, I got on the bus and I cried all the way home, and for most of the weekend and all of the next week when I called in sick for work. And I was just in such a place of despair. And like, all that was running through my head at that time was like, in making this choice to be authentic to who I am, have I like opened myself up to a life of loneliness? Like, is this what's in store for me? And in the nights that followed, like in the months that followed, that like in the middle of the night when you can't sleep, those are the voices that play around in your head. And it was a really awful time, but I also realized in that moment that if the message in our society that to be trans is synonymous with loneliness, we have got to do something about that.
Yes.
Like, we have got to change that narrative because it is not true,
Yeah.
And I look at my life 6 years later, like all of the many friends and the family and my beautiful girlfriend and this life that I live and my work that I do, and my life is far from lonely, But that moment taught me a lot, and it taught me that I have to step up and help to contribute to changing that narrative. We have to start talking about trans people in a positive, strengths-based way. We have to acknowledge the contribution that they make to the society and how our world is a richer and brighter place for them being in it. And we have to have our cis allies step out and say, we love and respect trans people. We are glad that they are here, and say it again and again and again until the message is changed. So no one else has to sit on the bus and cry all the way home and go through that, because it was really, really difficult, Yeah.
You see, the beautiful thing about your spirit is that you chose not to believe it because you made a stance to be completely the opposite. Whereas, I guess hopefully now people in this person's line of expertise is learning more about not generalizing us to the point of knowing exactly or assuming they know exactly how we live. So I completely I admire your spirit through that, because look at you now. You're living such a fruitful life, and there's so many people around you. When did you meet your partner?
3 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And now you have a cat.
I now have a cat. Gosh. It's really good. Yeah, and I don't think that person that said that thing is like, I don't think that they're a bad person or anything like that. Like, I just think that they just didn't know, and I think misinformed, yeah. And I think for a lot of people, like, I think as a society, we're starting to be able to start this conversation now. And I think for a long time we didn't have the words to be able to talk about these sorts of things. There was no language that was around, and everyone is afraid to say the wrong thing and offend someone, and so sometimes it just looks like either people not talking at all, and just it just locking people's vocal cords up, and them not being able to have the conversation or start to talk.
Like you spoke to it like earlier, where there was just no visibility for us at all, and you, like so many of us, had to make the rules up as we went, because we just didn't know what we didn't know. Totally. So we were living 100% fearless, I guess you could say. Well, fearless is a word that I really think we are. Because if we decide to live authentically and in our truth, it comes with so much that we have to do in order to achieve it. Moving on. Your partner, who we met, is such a lovely woman. A lot of people tend to think that love is such a hard thing for us, but you are living it every day. Is it a hard thing for us? And are we lovable?
I feel like I'm lovable.
I think so.
No, I reckon it's pretty tricky, eh? It's pretty tricky. I was really lucky because I met my partner just in through work, we just stumbled upon one another, and it happened really naturally. But I was on the apps for a while, and it's a bit of a minefield out there, eh?
Yeah. How do you navigate dating?
I think I was really just transparent about everything, I'd just rather just be honest about who I am, this is me. I can't change it, and there's no point in welcoming anybody else into my life that wants to change it, because everybody who wanted to change it has already exited, so they can just stay away, So if anybody wants to enter into my life, my trans identity and who I am is non-negotiable, it's a part of me. I have an unshakable sense of who I am as a person, and just a quiet confidence in the fact that if I put good energy out into the world and I continue to be a good person and open doors where I can, that those blessings will come through, So that's why I try and enter into it. Not to say that I haven't had crappy experiences, and not to say that it hasn't been shit at times, because it has, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just hit the mark on the head. Being a good person, goodness will come back to you, and look at all the goodness that you have. Even a good little cat. Yeah. Please, how does it feel being a parent to a furry creature?
It's frustrating at times, to be honest, but he's a great cat. I really love him.
We love them. We have to love them, even though they don't love us.
Yeah, I know. Take it or leave it, but it's so good.
Okay. In your journey, what has been the most difficult thing?
The most difficult thing.
Things. What have you had to? What do you feel like? What are you proud to say you've overcome?
I was honestly, my 20s was such a mess. I was just so sad, eh? Just so down, and I don't even think half the world knew how sad I was, and it was just almost as if I was living life on the outside and watching everybody else experience it, and I couldn't ever let go and be able to just experience it myself. The freedom to be able to step into a social situation and just be completely at peace with myself, be able to strike up a conversation with a stranger, or be able to feel like the way that they saw me was how I wanted to be seen, or how I wanted to be acknowledged. I forget that now, because it's something that I'm used to, but at the time I was so self-conscious, and just I felt like the whole world was just staring at me, and I was so afraid for my safety as well, all of those things. I think I'm proud that I took that initial step, I'm proud that I was able to speak the words aloud and step into my truth. I'm proud that I was able to learn to put boundaries in place with people and be able to say exactly what I needed. I think more than anything, I think I'm proud that I found my voice, and it took me a long time to find it, but now that I'm able to speak freely, you know, and openly, and this way it feels great, you know. It feels really, really great. Yeah. Yeah.
I like that as like a closing thing, but we'll continue on with
course.
But that was beautiful. So, you used to work as a librarian.
Yeah, I did.
I've been told, I'm not calling you this, but it said in the document that you're a bit of a self-proclaimed nerd.
Totally a big nerd, yeah. Absolutely.
So literature must be a passion of yours,
Yeah,
correct?
absolutely, yeah. I love it. Love reading, I actually listen. I don't read, I listen. So I'm usually walking around with headphones on and like got an audiobook or a podcast on the go. Like, just love learning. I've always been kind of like that, quite nerdy, yeah.
That's fine. Everybody loves the nerd. But how important is it for to have more queer writers, to have more queer literature written? How important do you think that is?
So important. I remember really early in my journey when I was I was kind of working out my sexuality at the time, like, you know, who am I attracted to kind of thing. I remember going into the library and finding a book about, it was like a lesbian, like, fiction book or something like that. And it was when I was a teenager. And, you know, I found this book and it was, like, down an aisle and there was no one else there. And I just sat there on the floor, cross-legged, like, soaking it all in, reading it all and just being like, oh, my gosh, like, this is me, you know? And just so excited, but I was way too afraid to take it out at the library just in case anybody saw it on my library card. So I just used to come back every day and read a bit more.
Just, I have a similar story. I read a book. Everybody knows this book. Are You There, God?
It's me, Margaret.
Oh my gosh! And I remember reading it in the library.
Yeah.
I didn't want to take it out either. Reading it, thinking, I am going to be this girl. When am I going to get my period?
Yeah, that's right.
Being highly disappointed. But, you know, literature is so necessary. You run a festival.
I don't run it. Well,
You don't run it? You're part of it.
Part of it, yeah. I'm
Same,
on the board for Same But Different.
Board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great. I'm quite new to the board. It's quite new. But I really love the kaupapa around like encouraging more queer writers and artists to be able to put their art out into the world and take those first steps to get their voice shared and heard. Again, particularly passionate about how we can do that for young people, how we can get their voice out into the world. The more of us out there, the more of us creating stories, the more of us creating content, the more books in the library about us, you know, like the more spaces that we will see ourselves. And, you know, everybody's story is so unique and so different. And there's no right one or wrong way to be a trans person. We are all just figuring this out as it happens to us, you know, and we're all just expressing ourselves in whatever way that feels right. And the more diversity we can show of that experience, the more our allies and the more society understand about its intricacies and its nuances, the easier it will be for us to carve a space for ourselves, rather than just those, you know, those same old tired narratives of what it's like to be a trans person. Like, you know, like I was talking about, you know, like those are the things that we want to really challenge and change. So, yeah, that's why I'm passionate about it and excited to be on this board and doing the thing. So.
You're speaking tonight.
Not speaking, just attending.
Just speak. Oh,
no.
Oh gosh,
it's all good.
Never mind.
No, we got an event tonight, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
So it's our opening gala. So we're just excited to have the community come through and hear some fresh writing from some of Aotearoa's queer writers, and hopefully, see some friends and all of that.
See some friends and inspire some people.
Yeah, totes. Yeah, be good.
How important is it for families to support their children going through their transition or wanting to go through their transition?
I think like a lot of trans people over the years, I've been contacted by other people who are thinking of making this journey and are really struggling, and I've had a couple of whānau come to this house, actually sat around the kitchen table and kind of I was really fortunate to bear witness to them discussing this and talking about their kids' journey and how to support them. And I think it's really important that we hold space for family to go through that process of firstly learning about, you know, trans lives and trans people, because often what they know about the trans community isn't always a positive thing.
Yes.
Like even in my own whānau, you know, they were so frightened that it would lead me to having a really hard and difficult life, or that people would lose respect for me, or that I would be in a position of danger. These are all really common fears that whānau have.
Yeah.
And also, like, when something is so outside of your realm of experience, like if this is not something that you have ever thought about before, like, of course it's going to be really confusing at the start when you're first kind of trying to work out where your kid is coming from, you know? But for every cis person that is like, how can you possibly think this way? The trans people are over here going like, how can you possibly not? Like, how is this not a thing? How can't you see it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's about finding that place where those different perspectives meet, bringing as much empathy into the conversation as possible, and understanding that your young person or the person in your whānau that is transitioning is not the first person in your family to be trans. There has been people throughout your family tree, through your whakapapa, that have also had this same experience. We just don't know who they are or how to talk about them.
Yeah.
But from what I can see and from what I know through work and through my like professional life, is that when we come together and when we wrap around that young person, it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Like all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
When that young person has that support, when they have people around them who demonstrate love and acceptance and continue to support them, it's a game changer. Absolute game changer.
So what happens to those who don't receive the support that they need?
I think everyone's experience is different, but it makes it a lot harder, eh? Like, I feel like transition can be, and maybe in a way that this is what that, you know, person that was who said this was like kind of referencing, is that sometimes it can be a lonely journey, you know? I feel that like it takes such courage to be able to say it for the first time and to be able to speak it out loud. And I remember the first time I said it, my voice shook, you know? I was terrified. I was like, what will this mean for me, you know? Because back then I didn't know half the stuff I know now about our community and how awesome it is, and how the strength and the amazing qualities that like this experience gives you in life. I didn't know. All of that is just, you know, your future is really unknown. What will I look like? You know, what will I sound like? Will this person still want to be around me? Will this person still want to be around me? And I think that like there's a real difference when somebody steps towards you versus when they step away. And in my life, people have stepped away. And some of those people have stepped away intentionally, but others have stepped away because they were so afraid of saying the wrong thing, and they were so afraid of offending me, or they were so afraid of not being able to have the right conversation with me, that the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, and the months turned into years, and that relationship has fallen by the wayside. And there's a lot of grief that happens when those relationships end, you know? Some sadness and feelings of like regret, you know? So when everyone steps away, like I can't imagine how difficult it would be to be the one person in the center of all of that, advocating for yourself. Like that would be a really, really hard position to be in when there's nobody else to rely on.
And you can just only imagine that this has happened throughout the years, throughout the decades, as people can't even get to that point of being able to affirm who they are because they can't, because they know the consequence. But we live in a society now where we have people like yourself who is making it easier for the next people over, that might become something of a distant memory. Well, we hope, don't we?
Yeah. And I think like those gestures don't need to be big, you know, they don't need to be massive. You don't need to do anything other than just say, hey, it's so cool I think it's so cool what you're doing, you know, like it's so important to be true to who we are in life. Like, I'm really proud of you. Is there anything I can do to change the way I interact with you to better affirm you? What support do you need? Can I help in any way? Or, you know, depending on your talents, bake them a cake, or like give them something to know that you're still walking beside them in this journey, even if you don't quite know how to be there yet. The fact that you're still there and you're still stepping toward them is the important thing. It's just don't leave that silence, don't leave them there alone. Like we've got to step in and we've got to wrap around our trans whānau, because they're awesome and amazing.
We are,
we love them.
aren't we?
Yeah, we
boom,
do.
boom. What are your hopes for the future of our community?
I hope that all trans people are able to live the life that they wish they want to live, without any bother, without any stress, and they're able to access everything they need to access, and they're able to walk down the road and the street without fearing for their lives, and that we are recognised in legislation, that we are recognised in policy, and that we are seen and heard and appreciated and loved. That's the bottom line for me. Like, at the end of the day, like, all I want out of this life is to be happy and to build a life of happiness around me, whatever that looks like, is to have community and to be safe and warm and content. Like, that's all I want. I don't have any like massive dreams for like, fame or heaps of money, although those things would be nice, I suppose. But, that's not what I want, I just want, I want family and friends and, happiness, like, and I don't think that's too much to ask, but it makes me really sad to think that isn't our baseline that we're working from at the moment. And we've got to make a change. It's got to be, it's got to be happening,
Absolutely. Is there any questions that you guys want to ask? I feel like any on that was beautiful.
Great. Thank you so much. Is there anything you would like to add?
Yes.
What would I like to add?
Have we missed anything at all?
No. I guess I think the only thing I want to add is that, like, I feel like compared to like many people, like, my journey has been definitely difficult and it's been challenging and it hasn't been easy by any stretch, but I'm so lucky to have the background that I come from, and I'm really lucky that a lot of the violence that's like targeted and aimed at our community isn't aimed at me, as a Pākehā person who's male presenting, and I can walk through my life without generally fearing that it's in danger, and I'm really conscious of that. And I'm really conscious that, like, others who maybe don't have the same circumstances, the same upbringing as me, like, might not have those opportunities. So I feel really conscious that, like, I want to make sure that, we don't talk over those voices or not give space for them to be lifted up too, because it's very easy to look at my life and be like, oh, well, he's got a house and he loves to go to the gym and, like, he's a dancer and, like, he's got a girlfriend and all of those things are great, but, like, and I love them, but I think that I was given a very unique set of circumstances which allowed me to achieve in those ways. And I just recognize that, like, my story isn't the one that we lift up and prioritize with this conversation, because it's just one life and lots of other people face more struggle and more hardship, and I'm just real conscious of that.
I appreciate those that recognize the privilege that they have. That may not be an extensive amount of privilege, but it's privilege in any way, shape or form, and from that making space for people who aren't afforded those privileges is something that we all should be striving for continuously each day. That we want to keep advocating for our people, because it's those people at the end of the day that are the voiceless. So I tautoko what you said, and I appreciate it completely, because it's still hard for trans women of colour in this society. I can say that from complete experience. But we have people on our side to help us improve daily. Which is people like yourself, people like the ones that we've interviewed already.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And for me, like, I don't want to live in a world where other people who are trans are still having a hard time just because my life is going quite well. You know, like that. That makes me even more fired up to like get out there. You know, because it's like it's not just some of us; it's all of us. You know, and like, I like for me, it's not just about like equity; it's about total and utter inclusion. You know, and so all of that.
Total goal. Total goal. Yeah.
I've just got more. This is a question, but more of an observation. I haven't heard that term male presenting before. That's like a new thing for me, and it's been a journey, I think, for me, especially on this. And I was just, it kind of raised a thought in my mind. It's like you were making the point that by male presenting and being parky high, you saying that you get people less observing you.
Yeah, for sure.
And obviously you see a difference between your trans situation in the world, whereas female trans situation, female presenting is different. I'm just curious how that. Is there kind of like a cutting off point?
Yeah.
Something? How does that work out for you personally? Maybe as
I think like what's really like, I don't internally. I've never like identified as like a man, you know, like that's never been something that I felt like I was like, and it's never been something I've strived to be either. Like I don't see cis men or, and think like, oh, you know, I wish that I was like them, you know, like that's never been my experience of it. It's always been like that hot flame of masculinity, you know, like I'm just loving I love wearing masculine clothes. I love my like sharp jawline and my beard and short hair and the muscles and you know, like I love all of those things about being masculine. I just love it, you know, like it just makes me feel so good. But like that's not linked to me wanting to be a man, you know, that's just linked with me loving masculinity. And when I move through the world, like I could walk down the dairy and for the most part, if I drop my voice and square my shoulders and go in and talk to the person behind the counter, they're just going to read me as like an average dude that's walking around my neighborhood, you know, like for them there's nothing visibly trans about me, even though my sense of self and inside it's trans all over and like down to my fingertips, you know. So for me, I live in a sense sort of an anonymity from being trans for most of the time, unless I speak about it openly, which I do. I live openly because I've got nothing, I don't want to hide it, you know. But for many of our trans whānau, that's not the case, and maybe they go through their life every day and people might like be able to visibly read them as being trans in some way, whether they wear their identity because that's what they want to do or whether they don't, you know. And so that can be quite a confronting experience for trans people, I think, depending on where they're sitting in the situation. So when I'm walking down the street, most of the violence that's aimed at trans people isn't aimed at me, you know, it's aimed at others. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that, and also use that anonymity, because as stink as it is, like it's more likely that my voice will be heard. And so I want to make sure that I'm speaking the right thing so that all of our whānau are advanced and are brought along on the journey, you know. That's what makes it important.
Speaking of which, would you be able to give your definition of trans?
A definition?
Because we've found, this is off the cuff, but we've found that throughout the different generations, their understanding and their different definition of trans is vastly different. So it'd be nice to see where, because you're almost our middle person, where that sits with you.
I think that trans is change. I think that trans is shifting. I think that trans is innovative. I think that trans is outside of the box. I think that trans is inspiring and fluid and evolving, and I think trans is nature. I think trans is a journey. I think trans is a blossoming. I think trans is growth. I think trans isn't fixed, you know. It isn't a fixed sense of the gender that you were born into. And sometimes for some trans people, I think that shift happens and they stay in the same space and they're quite happy there. And for other of us, it's more of like a shifting, like a wave, a here some days and a here those other days. And it's like my internal sense of gender is never definable, because it depends on the day and how I'm feeling and the clothes I'm wearing and the experience I've had and what I'm thinking about and what I'm experiencing in relation to other things, you know. Like it's kind of like this. It's really hard to describe.
Yeah.
You know, it's really hard. It just is, you know. It is, and it's always been, you know. So how do you define something that you've grown up experiencing? Like, I can't imagine what it would like to be cis. Like, like what? Like, you just don't experience this. Like, for me, it's
poor you.
Exactly. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Cool.
So no one definition, just a whole bunch of words
It's
and
just
feelings.
a whole
I'm full, thank you.
Thank you so
That
much.
very well at my point. Yeah.
Sweet.
That was wonderful.